Okay, so let's dive into the sources you shared about starting a nonprofit here in Canada. It seems like one of the very first big decisions is where you actually incorporate, right? Are
Uh,
you going provincial, like under Ontario's ONCA, or federal with the CNCA?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And the sources, they really help unpack that core question. They're quite clear that there's no single best answer. It's really a strategic choice. It depends entirely on what your specific organization needs, what its goals are.
Right. So, looking at this article excerpt and the other materials, our goal for this deep dive is, I guess, to really focus on those key differences. We want to highlight the practical distinction so you can figure out which path might align better with your vision.
Yeah, it's interesting because these might seem like just technical legal points, but they actually have um, pretty significant impacts day to day. We're talking
Hmm.
governance, operations, even how much information you have to share publicly. Let's dig into some specifics the sources point out.
Absolutely. Okay, one difference that kind of jumps out right away from the comparisons is the minimum number of directors needed. What do the sources say there?
Ah, yes. There's a clear split, according to the sources. For ONCA, Ontario system, you need at least 3 directors, period.
Three minimum. Okay.
But under the federal CNCA, it's a bit more flexible. If you're what's called a non-soliciting corporation, basically you're not asking the public for money, generally,
Uh-huh.
then you can actually start with just 1 director.
Oh, just one.
Just one. Now, if you are soliciting under CNCA federally, then you also need at least 3. So that's definitely something to consider if you're starting small versus planning a bigger board right off the bat.
That's a really significant difference for the initial setup. And sticking with structure, the sources mention something interesting about non-voting members, too.
They do. Under ONCA, the material suggests non-voting members generally can't vote on the big stuff, major decisions, unless, that is, your own bylaws specifically say they can.
Okay, so the default is no vote.
Right. But contrast that with the federal CNCA. There, sources say non-voting members can potentially vote on certain really important matters, even if your bylaws don't mention it. So that changes the dynamic of influence for those members.
Interesting. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about financial stuff? Reporting standards, the sources seem to suggest a difference there as well.
Yes, they do. The CNCA, the federal route, generally has, let's say, stricter standards for financial reviews.
Mm.
And it often requires a certified accountant for things like filing financial statements.
Right, a professional accountant.
Exactly. Whereas ONCA, provincially, is presented as being, well, maybe less stringent there. It typically doesn't mandate a certified accountant for those same filings. This could definitely affect your admin costs and, the level of financial scrutiny.
And that seems connected to public transparency, which also varies according to the materials.
Correct. Under ONCA, the info available to the public is usually the organization's address and director names. Basic stuff. But for CNCA corporations, especially those soliciting funds, the sources say the public record is more expensive. It often includes your bylaws, the articles of incorporation, and even financial statements.
Mm.
So if being highly transparent is key for you, or maybe a concern, that's a big point.
And a very practical difference, just location-wise, is the required address for incorporation.
Super practical point. For ONCA, you absolutely need a valid address in Ontario. Makes sense, it's provincial.
Yep.
If you go the federal CNCA route, though, you can use a valid address anywhere in Canada. So that gives you geographical flexibility, which could be decisive if, your main base isn't necessarily Ontario.
Good point. The sources also mention, and this seems important, you can't incorporate under both at the same time. You have to pick one.
Right, you choose one lane to start.
Yeah.
But the sources do add that switching later on. It's sometimes possible. There's some flexibility down the road, but that initial choice is key.
And sometimes the choice is made for you. The material mentions specific cases where ONCA is required.
Yes, exactly. The sources give examples like Ontario hospitals. They typically must use ONCA. Or sometimes, if you're getting specific funding from the Ontario government, the funder might mandate ONCA incorporation as a condition.
So in those cases, it's not really a choice.
Not really,
Yeah.
but the sources also make a crucial clarification. Even if you incorporate under ONCA in Ontario, you can usually still operate across Canada.
Oh, okay. So you're not limited just to Ontario.
Not necessarily for operations or fundraising, you just
Mhm.
have to make sure you're following the local rules in other provinces or territories. You might need to register there locally, for instance. But ONCA incorporation doesn't automatically fence you into Ontario.
Okay, so pulling all this together, the main message from the sources seems to be This isn't simple. It's not one size fits all.
Definitely not.
Your choice really depends on weighing these different factors, doesn't it? Like, where will you operate most? Where might funding come from? What kind of structure feels right? What are the long-term plans?
Precisely. And the sources wisely advise, really thinking through these differences in your specific context.
Hmm,
And ideally, talk to a legal advisor who specializes in nonprofit law. They can really help you make the best choice for your situation.
right. So to wrap up this deep dive, choosing ONCA versus CNCA involves looking at governance like director numbers, comfort with financial reporting rules, how public you want or need to be.
Exactly. And maybe one final provocative thought the sources touch on, thinking really long term. What happens if the nonprofit way down the line needs to close down? Where do its assets go?
Oh, interesting point.
Under ONCA, the rules generally say assets must go to another qualified organization or public body within Ontario.
Hmm.
Under CNCA, they generally must go to a qualified, like a registered charity or government body, but that could be anywhere in Canada.
Ah, so the potential scope for where assets end up is different.
It is. So does
Yeah.
that potential ungame requirement influence how you think about the organization's legacy, its ultimate purpose? It's just something else to maybe factor into that foundational decision.